And welcome to episode number 2 of the Miree podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miree, and we're back for another week. What a crazy week it was in week 1 as we again broke down and picked the last 4 games, the 4 biggest games from last week, and we ended up going 4-0. I was pretty shocked. There were some games I wasn't sure about, but wow, I mean, what can you say? That first game, Georgia Clemson, it went about how we said it was going to go. Georgia just, like I said, imposed their will in the second half. Even in a tight game, if it's tight in the first half, they still pulled away. You've got to come out and you've got to establish something against them. And like I said, unless you have a dynamic playmaker at quarterback, somebody that's going to make a huge difference with their passing ability and running ability, it's just very difficult to beat a juggernaut of a defense like that. And you see it with the way Clemson's quarterback played, Klubnik. He just doesn't have that dynamic playmaking ability. Not to say that he's not a quality quarterback, but like I said, you got to have that against Georgia. And like I said, they picked up right where they left off last year, and even though they lost Brock Bowers and McConkey, they picked it up, and they picked up another couple of receivers, and they kept rolling. So, what can you say? That went about how we expected, but in that Miami Florida game, I felt like Miami had the better team. I felt like they were going to win. I think Florida's just in a disarray right now, and like I said, they're just a casualty of how dominant the SEC is and how deep it is. There's going to be teams like Florida that are an established, traditional power that are just going to be middle of the road because of how stacked it is, and that's just how it goes. And I think that's where Florida is right now. They're just, you've got Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, all up there in the top, and somebody's got to lose these games. And unfortunately, I think Florida is just not there. And I think their coach Napier is really on the hot seat. With the schedule they have coming up, it's going to be really hard for him to get through that. But we'll see how things shake out. And in the other 2 games, that Texas Notre Dame game, it was kind of it was a defensive struggle. I think like I said in the first game of the new season, there's just going to be struggles. And Notre Dame came out and they sniffed it out. I don't think either team looked very well. I think they've got a lot of work to do offensively, both teams. But Notre Dame found a way to win on the road, and that's going to be a huge win for them going down the road. And then you look at the last game, USC LSU. That was a really exciting game. I think that was just like a classic college football game. Going back and forth. I thought both teams looked pretty well on offense. I think both of these young starters, the quarterback and Moss for USC, looked great. And I don't think this is one of those games like you look at Florida, who got dominated by Miami at home, where you look and say, hey, this might be an indication of how things are going to go the rest of the season, versus when you look at LSU, who actually, they were going back and forth. They were in the game. They looked like they could win. I just don't think, a loss can be measured in 2 different ways, So I think LSU is going to be okay. But like I've said, going into this season, I mean, you just have so many killer matchups, and with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, it's going to be a fight every week. I mean, when we get into conference play, I mean it's going to be just every week. There's going to be a killer matchup, so it's going to be a great season. I can't wait. But let's go ahead and get into this week's matchup. So for this week, this is kind of for what I just said, with all the matchups we got coming up, every week. This week is, this one was a little tougher. I think, you've got a big game at the 12 o'clock. Now, with all these games I'm going to talk about, I'm going on Eastern time. And anyways, for the first game, we've obviously got the top 10 matchup between Texas and Michigan, and Texas being on the road. And again, this is going to be a home game for Michigan in the Big House, so keep that in mind. Now, that's obviously the biggest game of the day right there. And then you've got a couple more matchups, but I just kind of went through it and picked out what I thought the biggest matchups were going to be, because that's really what I want to focus on. And for the night game, we've got Tennessee and NC State. Now that's going to be a 7:30 kickoff, and this one as well is going to be. It's actually going to be a neutral site game in Charlotte. So, but I would expect Tennessee to bring the majority of the fans there. They're gonna bring a good crowd, and then for the third game, I'm just doing 3 games this week. We're gonna go Auburn, Cal, and yes, obviously I haven't come out before and said it, but I'm an Auburn fan. I grew up an Auburn fan, been an Auburn fan my whole life. So usually I stay away from making predictions on them, but I felt like with this week, just the lack of big time matchups, I'm gonna throw them in there. And they've got Cal at home, and this is actually going to be a 3:30 game. So we've got 3 different games going on all day here, and we'll just get into the first game with Texas and Michigan. Obviously everybody knows about Texas and the run they went on last year with Steve Sarkisian being the head coach and Quinn Ewers at the quarterback, and they've got him coming back, and you've got Archie Manning on the bench. And you've just got a lot of good players coming back. With Texas has some really good linebackers. They played a really good defensive game last week. And, that first game is just, when you play a team like that, you really want to see what your team can do. It's not really about who they're playing. It's about how they execute, how they come out. And I thought Texas did a good job of that. They're ready to play. And on the other side with Michigan, winning the national championship last year, losing their coach, Jim Harbaugh, losing the quarterback, some receivers, running back. It's going to be interesting to see how they come back. A lot of times when teams win a national title, if they're not in a dynasty, if it's just a one-off, they have a really hard time replacing that, because there's a lot of chemistry and magic that happens in going on a title run when it's your first one in a long time. So in this game, obviously Texas is coming in with an advantage. They're a 7.5-point favorite currently, and the total is 43.5. With this game, Michigan playing at home, that should be a factor. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I just don't think this Michigan team is going to be the same as it was last year. And I think Texas has got a little chip on their shoulder from coming up short last year against Washington. They just got off to a really bad start in that game. And if that game had played another 5-10 minutes, they would have won that game. I think Quinn Ewers is, he's up there probably in maybe a top 10 draft pick for next year's draft. So I would look at him to come out. They're going to come out with some fire. I don't think that Michigan crowd is going to affect them too much. So I would look for 7.5, 43.5. I'm looking at the spread here. If you can get it to 7, I would take 7 all day. And I'm gonna go ahead and say I like Texas in this one, and I like them 28-20. 28-20. I think the total could go over 2 as well, 43.5. I think Texas can put up some points. Michigan's probably going to try to slow the game down as they did in their first game of the year, where they relied heavily on the running game. So look for them to slow down, but I think Texas has got enough offense where they can really put it on them. And I'm looking for Texas in that one. 28-20 is my official prediction. And for the betting one, take Texas at -7 if you can get it. I still like 7.5 too as well. Okay, moving on. We're going to go to the Auburn-Cal game. And so with Auburn here, you got Hugh Freeze in his second year. You've got some returning guys. You got Peyton Thorne at quarterback. You've got a pretty good defense coming back with some key players in Asante and Keys at linebacker. And you also have a young secondary. So, with Auburn, you just never know what you're going to get with them. But I think with what Freeze is building recruiting-wise, what he's been able to do and come in when Auburn was pretty much left for dead under Harsin, I think he's building talent and he's bringing in talent. But it's going to be interesting to see if that takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes. It's a process. But I still think there's talent here to beat Cal. I don't think Cal got any better from where they were last year when Auburn went on the road and beat them. I think they're just a middle of the road team, and I think Auburn should win this game. Now, if you're looking at it at the line here, Auburn's -13. The over is 53.5, over under 53.5. And Auburn obviously put up 73 last week, but they're playing a junior varsity high school team, basically. You can't really put much stock into that. But also what's probably not most people should be aware of it, but many people may not be aware of it. Auburn brought in probably the best receiving class last year in the country, and they all but one of them, there's four guys, all but one of them caught a touchdown pass last week. I mean, they look great, and I think Auburn's going to utilize that again. And you cannot discount the running game with Jarquez Hunter. I mean, if they can get the running game going with the passing game, they're going to be hard to stop it. And I think Auburn's really going to rely on their offense more, as in the past where it relies on the defense. So in this game, it's tough for me to say, being a lifetime Auburn fan, because they can come out and look good, but they give you a heart attack a lot of times. So what I like for this game is I really like the over if I'm going to take anything, because Cal could keep it within 13 easily. So I'm going to go over in this 53.5. I think it's going to be going back and forth. I think Auburn will pull away late, but I look for Auburn. I would say I'm going to go 35-21. So there you go for that. Take the over. All right, moving on to the last game. We got a night game here. NC State, Tennessee. Now, obviously Tennessee looked really good. They rolled out their new quarterback, and he looks sharp. You can tell that he's got something. He can sling it, and he was throwing all day on that junior varsity team they played as well. So you're looking at this line here, and Tennessee's 8-point favorite, and the over/under 60.5. Now, I actually got to watch that NC State Western Carolina team, and let me tell you something. NC State looked awful. I mean, they looked terrible. Their quarterback, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, garbage. I just don't like it. And Grayson McCall's done great things for Coastal Carolina and put himself on the map, but I don't think. I mean, nobody from the ACC impressed me, and we ain't even talked about Florida State and how garbage they are. I mean, let's not even get into that. But I mean, outside of Miami, I mean, who looks good in the ACC? Because even though NC State won by 17, I mean, if you watch that first half, it was awful. And you're gonna throw them in the game with Tennessee and the talent they have on defense and the talent they have on offense. I don't like it. I love Tennessee -8 here. I think they could cover that in the first half. I think they're going to win by 20. And as far as the total goes, they could put up points too. And I don't think their defense. I think their defense is going to shut down McCall. I think he's going to really struggle. I mean, if you watch that first game NC State played against an inferior opponent, I mean, they just didn't look sharp, and I don't see them turning it around against a defense like Tennessee. I mean, it's the level of talent. It's just going to go way up. So, in this game, I really like the -8 with Tennessee there. The over/under, it could go either way. I think Tennessee is going to put up points, but I don't think the NC State, I don't see them putting up more than 3 touchdowns on Tennessee, if that. I think Tennessee's going to shut them down. So really in this game, I would take Tennessee -8. And as far as the total goes, I would stay away from that because it could go either way. But I'm going to go ahead and say I like Tennessee right here, 42-14 on that one. So just a quick recap here. We're going with 3 games this week. We're going with Texas, Michigan. We're going with Auburn, Cal. And we're going with Tennessee, North Carolina State. So in the first game, again, all these games are on Eastern time. Texas, Michigan, you're going to have a 12 o'clock kickoff. This is going to be Eastern. And I like Texas in that one. And I like the points. I think Texas is going to cover it. I like Texas -7 if you can get it there. Auburn, Cal, over is 53 and over under 53.5. I like the over in that game. I think Auburn and Cal will both put up points, but I think Auburn's going to pull away late. So take Auburn there on the over 53.5. Now the last game, Tennessee, North Carolina State. This is a 7:30 kickoff. We're going with the spread here. We're going with Tennessee -8. All right. So that's it for this podcast. I appreciate everybody listening. And you can catch me on YouTube. You can catch me on Twitter, the X. And I look forward to coming back next week. Thank you.